And good morning, everyone. We are back here, Dave King and Matt Martin on the air. 42 degrees in the Hub City this morning, and as promised, we have Jodey Arrington on the line. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Dave, Matt. Good to be with y'all, and it's great to be back in Lubbock, Texas. And I hope to join you in the studio, but I'm running late from my last meeting, so I'm glad to just be with you on the phone.
Hey, and that's fine. We love it when you're on the air with us and kind of bring us up to date. Is there anything at all interesting happening in Washington, D.C.?
Never. No, it's boring. Just another boring week. No, we've been waiting a long time. We've had over 100 hearings over the last 2 years on the Farm Bill, and finally voted it out of the committee, and it's on its way to the floor with a great farm policy with respect to the safety net and infrastructure for rural America, and lots of good things on that side. The controversy is on food stamps and the work requirements that we put in for able-bodied adults, and that's why we went out of committee with a straight Republican vote. The Democrats just dug their heels in, and I think they're on the wrong side of history and will be at the end of this process.
Will it pass a full Congress?
Oh, yeah, I think it will. There'll be changes because you have to get the 60 votes in the Senate, which means you're going to have to negotiate with the Democrats. But I think the Democrats are going to get beaten back, not by Republicans, but by the public sentiment, because 80% of Americans, Republican and Democrat alike, support work requirements for able-bodied people to receive government assistance. It's common sense. It's common decency. It actually is compassionate policy because we've trapped so many people in a cycle of dependence in these welfare programs. So I feel good about our chances of getting the Farm Bill out with even these SNAP reforms. We just have to take it to the people.
Congressman, with this reform, I was reading about it. It looks like, I think, overall it's going to save something like $9 billion, but the work programs that it's going to set up is going to cost around $7 billion. Is this just about a $2 billion plus on our end?
That's right. I mean, what we're doing is, and look, I'd like to save more money from the SNAP program, but in order to get this passed, you've got to demonstrate that the folks that are coming off, that you're not just, quote, kicking people off the welfare rolls. You're saying, look, we provide the training through the states and make sure that they have the education, training, and otherwise preparation to be in the workplace. And I think some of that, I think that's a real issue, but you could take all those savings and I'd like to take more and put it towards the debt. But in this case, in order to get people working and off the welfare rolls, I think it's a smoother off-ramp to opportunity when you're providing training and workforce training. So I think it's good public policy, especially when you're going to have to negotiate with the Democrats in the Senate. I think Mike Conaway was anticipating that, and I think it will bode well for us in getting something passed. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to get it. You're going to get it through the Senate.
Okay. One other thing about that, I've got a question. Is this going to still open up or allow the states to do drug testing for those on SNAP?
Yes, it will. Unfortunately, the states that do it, it costs them more to administer the test than what they save when they identify those who are on drugs and kick them off of the food stamp or welfare rolls. So I think it's the right thing to do. I think you can get the economics right, but yeah, the states still have that flexibility and authority to do it, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Well, Congressman, what are some of the bullet points that would interest the West Texas farmer that he's going to find in that farm bill?
Well, the most important thing is that, again, we restored cotton to the state safety net. We also allow our producers out here to update their yields. That's a big deal, so that'll help with our reference price. The other is, if you're a young farmer, you'll get more flexible terms on your loans and sort of a break on your premium on crop insurance. We're just acknowledging that we've had the worst, few years in terms of farm income than we've had since the Great Depression. So that's a good thing for guys that are just starting and don't have the equity to burn like some of the folks who've been in this business a while. And, broadband internet access, that is less than 50% of rural communities have meaningful access to the internet. So infrastructure in the way of broadband technology is going to be a significant investment, and I think that's going to go a long way on education, healthcare, along with just the business community there in small towns across the country. So all of those things, and then the right policies on food stamps. I don't think farmers, most of them don't like to be lumped in with the welfare program, but they'll feel a lot better about the farm bill in its entirety if we do the right thing and make people work who are capable of working or able-bodied.
Yeah. Let's take the 8:14 break, and we'll come back on the other side with more. And we're back here on KFYO Mornings, 95.1 FM and 790 AM. This is KFYO, and 42 degrees as you're getting up at 8:18, and we're back on the phones with Congressman Jodey Arrington. Congressman, glad you're here this morning. We've talked the first break all about the farm bill from one end to the other. Sounds like we're going to get it through Congress. So, how are things in general moving along in Washington, D.C. with the Trump agenda and everything that's going on?
Well, if you listen to the national media, you wouldn't think we got anything done. But the fact is we've had historic tax reform and regulatory burden relief to the tune of billions of dollars on the regulatory side, and we're bringing the capital back and jobs online, and people are keeping more of their paycheck. It's this economy has been stuck for 10 years, and for the first time it's growing. It's growing at a 4% GDP clip, which is twice what it's been growing over the last several years. So I think that's the best thing we've got going into the midterms. Obviously, we've talked a lot on your show about the veteran reforms, especially to making that bureaucracy work and hold people accountable for taking care and delivering on the promises that we've made to our veterans. We've got the first big down payment on rebuilding the military. It really has been decimated over the Obama era to the tune of $200 billion. We've put the biggest down payment in 15 years in giving our troops a pay increase of 2.4% for the first time in 10 years. And, we've got a lot of real threats around the globe, and I think we're restoring that sort of peace through strength posture that Ronald Reagan presented, that this president has made good, ironically, even on the promises and idle threats that Obama made. I think we're taking up that leadership mantle. Doesn't mean that we need to be involved in every conflict, but we've got to project strength, and we've got to do what we say we're going to do. And the world relies on us because we're the leader of the free world. Whether you like it or not, we have that responsibility.
Hey,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Congressman, you were talking about the tax cuts. Has there, it seems like I've heard there seems to have been some talk about making those permanent. Is there anything going on as far as bills or something to make that happen?
Yeah, Matt, that's a great point. That we've talked about teeing that up. I believe we will. It only makes sense, right? I mean, the Democrats voted against the tax reform bill, so we didn't have the votes to make the individual side permanent because of some budget scoring. They opposed tax reform as, quote, giveaway to Wall Street, when really 90% of Main Street is where the effects have been felt. But let's put it to a vote, and let's make those. They've criticized by the tax reform bill in many ways, but one of them was that we didn't make the individual side permanent. Well, let's tee that up and let's put it to vote. I can't imagine the Democrats being able to vote against that. So I see that happening. It's not on the docket for the next few weeks, but before the midterms, we'll be taking a vote on that. And that's a great point.
Well, and I'd tell everybody, look at your retirements because I don't know about anybody else, but my wife had one from an old job. She picked it up, looked at it, it had doubled. So I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
we've seen a lot of, and of course it's been a while since we've looked at it, but all this stuff that's been happening on Wall Street has made a big difference in what we personally have as our own retirements, much less what you see as far as commerce going around. So anyway, I was just going to throw that out there. But
well, I'm glad you did, and we get letters and comments all the time, like you said, seniors who are very pleased with their retirement returns, and so I think every American's benefiting. And the main thing is, I was with college kids last night. I said, you guys are going to have a better opportunities when you graduate to pursue your dreams and your career path. So I feel like that's our best high mark going into the midterms. The midterms are going to be a challenge, and we're fighting against historic trends that are not in our favor. And we've had some folks jump ship because they just they think it's time to leave. But I think we're still going to come out on top. The Senate is going to definitely win more Republican seats. It's whether we keep the House or not. I think we will.
Well, Congressman, explain something to us people down here that just something I can't get my head around is how negative the press in general is to Donald Trump. It's almost unbelievable. And you look at the list of positive things that he has done, and you hardly hear a peep out of it from the national press. Can you make me understand that?
It's hard to fathom a person, any individual, to suffer the slings and arrows of the national media like this president. I mean, they have fought him every step of the way. You've had an entrenched deep state bureaucracy and the highest law enforcement agency in the land, where they have been proven to be biased against this president, tried to keep him out of office, and then now they've tried to discredit him and work towards some impeachment. This guy is the toughest person I've ever worked with and worked around, and thank God, because we knew that in order to get this country back, we were going to have a fight on our hands. And I just think that when we prayed for our country, and so many have, I think that while Trump is different and while his style is different and while I don't endorse everything he says, he's a fighter. And most importantly, he doesn't care about whether you're Democrat, Republican, national media. He's there to do what he said he would do. And he's done just that in every thing that he's talked about and promised on the campaign. And I'm there to support him and fight alongside of him. I had my first meeting with him the other day in the White House, and I was very impressed with him. And I told him, on behalf of folks in West Texas, that I said, you may speak with a New York accent, but you speak the language of the people I represent. Keep fighting for America. Keep fighting for us. We support you.
Okay, Congressman, one thing that was brought up is now this is a mouthful. The Joint Select Committee on Budget and Appropriations Process Reform. What exactly are they trying to reform with the Budget and Appropriations Committee?
Matt, there are two things. One is the fact that we do shut down and stop budgeting that disrupts our it's costly and it's disruptive, especially to the military. So that we want process reforms to have more continuity and stability in funding the government. The other piece is budget outcome reforms. That's where I'm focused the most because, we can have a more seamless and efficient ride right off the fiscal cliff and destroy this country. We've got to turn the tide back on deficit spending and debt. And so this every member of Congress, House and Senate, Republican, Democrat, is not happy with our broken budget process. So hopefully we can make some fixes, but long term, we're going to have the courage collectively, like our president has, to go after the spending, the mandatory spending, the entitlement spending, like this deal on food stamps and others, but it's far bigger than just food stamps, to get this country back on solid fiscal ground so that our kids don't inherit a country that's on the brink of fiscal collapse and a sovereign debt crisis.
Okay, Congressman, one last thing, does the House have anything going on with the talks with North Korea? I know that North Korea, I think in South Korea, within the day or two, are going to get together and talk, and they're working on getting the United States to the table. Is the House have anything to do with that?
No, General Mattis briefed us the other day on the Syrian strikes, and so we had talked some about North Korea. I think right now it's to be determined. I'm skeptical of Kim Jong-un. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
But you know what? If somebody's willing to talk, I think the responsible thing to do and good leadership, I think, suggests that you've got to engage. I mean, this is serious stuff. The fact that they have the capability in an intercontinental ballistic missile to send a nuclear payload to the United States. But we ought to have some strong and serious demands on him. And if he doesn't acquiesce to those demands, then I think we've got to keep the pressure on economically, and then I think we have to be willing to strike if we need to, because this has gone on for far too long, and now we've allowed him to amass the capabilities to do some real damage to our allies and even our homeland.
Yeah, very true. Well, Congressman, that about wraps it up. That is, we're heading for a hard break here. We're so glad that you joined us this morning. And,
Dave, good to be with you, Dave. Matt, God bless.
Yeah, thank you,
go
Congressman.
West Texas.